everyone, and welcome to round 6 of the American Monoposto Championship 2022. I'm your host as ever, Josh Cassar, and today we're headed for the world famous Road America in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. But before we get into the action, let's have a quick look at the latest news in the AMC world. After their adventurous pit entry attempts in Michigan, both Simon Core and Gonzalez Cativo have been awarded with 3-place grid penalties. Let's see how well both drivers will be able to perform despite starting from further back. Daniel Benton Reader will return for his second race this season. His team's enthusiasm, however, isn't particularly high, as last time out he was involved in multiple incidents that certainly didn't help his reputation. And finally, Johannes Mikkel is going to debut for DMS Falcon Sim Racing in Road America. The team boss decided to take a punt and jump out of the office and into the cockpit. Well, with 5 races gone, Simon has decided to take a look at how the drivers have performed so far this season, whilst channeling his wannabe Martin Brundle.
Kevin Peters is without a shadow of a doubt still the top driver in the American Monoposto Championship. Other drivers have started to come close to his pace, but when it comes to consistency, he's outclassed everyone so far. However, it's difficult to judge his teammates because one of them only participated in 1 race so far, and other teammates of his like Ben Swaldinger or Mark Kyer weren't really that active either. Knezevic is the solid veteran the Odilo Racing team needed ahead of the season. Stabilizing the team, always keeping calm, and almost never making mistakes, though a few mistakes in Interlagos cost him a potential victory, but other than that, an almost flawless season from the Bosnian veteran. Jan Winter, on the other hand, is a bit of a mixed bag. Lots of talent, loads of speed, but maybe not the right mindset for the American Monoposto Championship 2022, at least until Michigan, where he started to really shine. Maybe with a bit more practice, he can win multiple races throughout the rest of the season. Old Yeller Cativo has shown that on his day, he still has what it takes. He's been around the block for a long time, similar to Knezevic, but compared to Kneze, he's made more crucial mistakes, and especially those in Montreal and Michigan didn't help his championship campaign. And despite all of that, it could still be considered a very successful comeback considering for how long he'd been out of sim racing. If you look at Max Heyman's talent, his season so far has been absolutely dreadful. No luck, no fortune, just a seemingly endless streak of bizarre incidents, though we can expect to see more from him throughout the second part of the season if we look at the pace that he's shown, especially in qualifying. The admin of the American Monoposto Championship hasn't really performed that well, if we're completely honest. Both chucking away a potential podium at Long Beach and indirectly bumping Alexander Knezevic out of the race at Rio certainly didn't help his reputation. Bartosz Krpeta certainly has the pace to compete in the American Monoposto Championship, but so far, he just lacks the consistency. If he can stop with his numerous incidents, he might be in with a shout for great results throughout the rest of the season. But for that to become a reality, he needs to apply himself more and focus on that consistency, more so than raw speed.
Road America will be one of the tougher challenges this season. Not only is it one of the longest circuits on the entire calendar, but numerous elevation changes tend to test a driver's braking abilities. Testing was a revealing experience for many drivers since the gap between the front runners and the midfield was enormous, and once again a familiar face was able to secure pole position. Kevin Peters secures an extra point for pole position ahead of Jan Winter in second place, Max Heyman in third, and Aaron Smith qualifies in fourth for MPM. Benton Reader starts in P5, behind him Gaggiano, Early and Knezevic. Probably not the result Knezevic had hoped for when it comes to the championship. Cativo with his 3-place grid penalty starts in 9th ahead of Aaron Curtis rounding out the top 10, Thekla in 11th and Hronsky in 12th. Simon Core starts from P13 ahead of Bent Waldinger and Bartosz Krpeta. Johannes Mikkel starts in 16th ahead of his teammate Christian Dittmer in 17th. And with that being said, I'll hand you over to your race commentator, Simon Core.
Thank you, Josh. Hello, everybody. It's Saturday. You know what that means. Another round round of the American Monoposto Championship 2022, round 6 from Road America. We look at the championship fight between Alexander Knezevic and Kevin Peters, though Knezevic is not in a particularly great position after qualifying, so let's see if he can make up some ground from Greece compared to his championship rival Kevin Peters, who's in a pretty good position right now considering that he's once again in pole position. Right next to him, Jan Winter is going to try his best to keep Kevin Peters from winning another race. Though behind them, Aaron Smith might be the dark horse for the 6th round of the championship. And let's not forget about people in the midfield like Daniel Bentenrieder or James Early. Kevin Peters on the left, Jan Winter on the right. The pace car comes in. The green flag is about to drop. And it's go, go, go! And Kevin Peters with a somewhat solid start. Winter behind him, Smith in 3rd. Heyman in 4th, Bentenrieder right next to him. Everybody going down the straight into T1. Smith ahead of Winter. Fighting with Bentenrieder. Bentenrieder with a fantastic start. Now in 2nd behind him, 2 Odilo cars, Heyman and James Early. But Kevin Peters still in the lead. Everybody filing through, trying their damnedest not to crash in T1. No restart necessary, unlike 2 weeks ago in Michigan, but Kevin Peters is in the lead once again. And look at Smith trying to overtake Bentenrieder already, going for the MPM 1-2. Doesn't quite manage to do it. Bentenrieder still in 2nd. Brilliant start for the man who's only raced once this year. Smith once again around the outside of Bentenrieder, doesn't work. Bentenrieder still in 2nd, Winter in 4th, Heyman in 5th, Knezevic, Early, Kativo, Gaggiano, Fekler rounding out the top 10. And we're going to have a look at the start in 1 second, but first let's look at that duel between Smith and Bentenrieder. Now it looks as if Smith could go much faster than Bentenrieder. Look at him almost losing it. And the man with the number 42 already ahead of Daniel Bentenrieder before the first lap is even finished. Behind them, Winter and Heyman in a squabble for 5th. And behind them, Alexander Knezevic again. He is currently in Greece with his laptop and the world-renowned 100 Deutschmark Momo wheel. But let's have a look at the start once again from Jan Winter's perspective, considering that he dropped back to 4th. Wasn't a particularly bad start from him, but Smith seemed to have reacted better to the start. Winter slightly outbrakes himself. Bentenrieder says thank you very much, but everything seems to have gone quite well, at least so far. And Kevin Peters already with a huge lead. Then Aaron Smith in 2nd, Bentenrieder in 3rd, and it looks as if he's going to let Jan Winter through, who's mathematically still in with a shout for this year's American Monoposto Championship. He actually does let him through. Bentenrieder now in 4th, behind him Heyman. Then Knezevic in 6th already. Early in 7th, Gaggiano fighting with Gonzalez Kativo in 8th. Kativo trying to overtake Gaggiano. Intense fight between the two, excuse me. Easy for me to say. Looks as if Waldinger lost tons of time in the background. And now Fekler overtaking his teammate Gonzalez Kativo, who's also still with a shout for the championship theoretically. Meanwhile, Bentenrieder lost tons of time. What happened there? James Early now in 6th, the Streamline Engineering team boss, now ahead of the returnee for Odilo, which also means that Alexander Knezevic is now in 5th, ahead of him Max Heyman in 4th. And as we can see here, Aaron Smith outbrakes himself. Jan Winter, therefore, is now back in 2nd. Pretty chaotic first few laps, you have to say. Everybody's still trying to find their rhythm. Very difficult around Road America, especially with these cars, because they're not particularly nimble. They're very difficult to drive. Turbo cars. Now Bentenrieder has fallen back to 7th. Behind him, Gaggiano, Fekler, Kativo now fighting with Core. It looks as if Kativo's on for a 2-stop at this point. People debating ahead of the race whether people should go for a 2 or a 3-stop. Simon Core, for example, we suspect is going to go for a 3-stop strategy. So by that logic, he should be able to overtake Gonzalez Kativo. And look at Philip Fekler chucking away his race. Wheel gone, race is over, and against the regulations, he decides to escape without the race director, Josh Kazar, allowing him to do so. Now, we're not sure whether or not that's going to be a penalty for Fekler, but nonetheless, Kevin Peters still in the lead ahead of Jan Winter in 2nd, Max Heyman now in 3rd, Knezevic in 4th, Bentenrieder in 5th. Where's Aaron Smith gone? Now, it looks as if Smith had an issue with his Fanatec wheel. It seemingly disconnected and therefore caused this bizarre spin. Smith is still in the race, but he's fallen back to 10th. Curtis behind him in 11th, then Johannes Michel in 12th, Corpetta fighting with Christian Dittmer and Dominik Kronski, and then in 16th, Benz Waldinger. Now, certainly an intense duel between these three trying to get back into points contention, but though it didn't take long for Aaron Smith to at least re-overtake Gonzalez Cativo, therefore Aaron Smith now in 9th, behind Simon Corr in 8th. And Gino Gaggiano's chucked it away! Gino Gaggiano has lost his front wing. He decides to escape without being allowed to as well. Let's look at what happened here. Gaggiano outbrakes himself. But nonetheless, that's the end for the main driver from SCMM. Definitely disappointing for the Italian. And I thought Michigan was chaotic. Now let's recap on lap 4. Peters ahead of Jan Winter in 2nd, Heyman in 3rd, Knezevic in 4th, ahead of Bent Reader in 5th, Early in 6th, Corr in 7th, Smith in 8th, Cativo in 9th, Curtis in 10th, Christian Dittmer in 11th, Dominik Kronski in 12th, and Bartosz Corpetta in 13th. Behind them, a lonely Benz Waldinger in 14th, and Johannes Michel has chucked it away. Johannes Michel, similar to both Gino Gaggiano and Philip Fickler, outbrakes himself, and therefore his race is over. Michel, of course, the team boss of the DMS Falcon Sim Racing squad, he decided to take a punt for round 6 of the American Monoposto Championship, but I can assure you that he will not be happy with this result at all. Meanwhile, Smith overtaking Corr, outbrakes himself. Corr tries to counter, switchback maneuver, does so, almost takes Smith out of the race. Looks as if both might be on for a 3-stop strategy. We suspect that Kevin Peters might be on for such a strategy as well. And currently the fastest guy on track is Kevin Peters, without a doubt, chucking out low 142s, while people like Winter, Heyman, and Bent Reader aren't really able to keep up with him on that front, always losing a few tenths every lap. Now, the fight between Kronski, Dittmer, and Bartosz Corpetta continues. Currently, Corpetta in 11th, Dittmer trying to overtake him. Does so successfully, but he outbrakes himself. Seemingly difficult for people to manage their brakes today. Dittmer doesn't manage to overtake Bartosz Corpetta in the end. Kronski's still in 13th, but he almost spins, loses tons of time. But he manages to keep it out of the wall. It would be very important for him to actually finish a race for once, because so far, Dominik Kronski has not been able to finish a single race in the American Monoposto Championship. In the meantime, Simon Corr makes a crucial mistake, almost loses it, lets Aaron Smith through, so Smith is back in 7th. Again, very disappointing that he had that technical issue, otherwise he would still be in contention for at least P2, but otherwise, great performance so far from Aaron Smith. What do I mean by saying otherwise? It has been a great performance by him so far, being hampered by the technical difficulties associated with his fan attack wheel. So let's see how many places he can still make up throughout the rest of the race. On that same lap, Christian Dittmer was finally able to pass Bartosz Corpetta. He's now in 11th, Corpetta in 12th, Dominik Kronski still in 13th. Again, his goal is just to finish the race, while both Dittmer and Corpetta are certainly aiming for more today, though I'm not sure how many places either one of them can make up at this point. Now, after overtaking the first streamlined driver, Aaron Smith passes James Early easily and is therefore now in P6. Behind him, James Early, Simon Corr in 8th. Ahead of him, Alexander Knezevic in 5th. Now, we're not sure which strategy he's on and why he's only in 5th position, considering his performances this year have been exceptional. So we're not sure whether his Momo wheel is actually hindering him performance-wise today, or whether he's on a 2-stop strategy and therefore might be losing time to both Dania Benton-Reader and Aaron Smith. Benton-Reader currently about 3 to 5 tenths faster every lap, though Benton-Reader tends to be a bit erratic on track, therefore I'm not sure whether he can keep this pace up. There's no doubt that currently Kevin Peters is dominating this race. Even with the 3-stop strategy, it doesn't look as if anybody can touch him today, unless, of course, there are some technical difficulties like he experienced in Montreal where his engine decided to quit. But if that doesn't happen, he's in a great position to increase the gap between himself and Alexander Knezevic in the championship standings today. Now, in the meantime, Simon Corr was able to pass James Early. He's now in 7th. Now, it looks as if both streamlined drivers are in a 3-stop strategy. However, it it looks as if Core might be pushing his tires much harder than James Early at this point, as we can see here with his tires locking though. So we're not sure for how much longer Core can actually keep up with this pace, but considering his more than mediocre qualifying, he's probably pretty happy with his position right now. Let's not forget, both Simon Core and Gonzalez Cativo received 3 plays grip penalties for their more than bizarre incidents in the pit lane 2 weeks ago in Michigan, so neither of them will be complaining about their positions in the race too much right now. Lap 9, Aaron Smith trying to overtake Alexander Knezevic, does so successfully. He's now up to 5th. Again, great performance by Aaron Smith, but what could have been if he'd not experienced that wheel problem? A bit further back, Gonzalez Cativo is having a great battle with Aaron Curtis. Cativo, of course, still theoretically in with a shout for this year's championship, but he won't be winning it if he makes mistakes like these. Outbrakes himself, similar to Gino Gaggiano, though he keeps it out of the wall. Aaron Curtis says thank you very much. They're now in 9th, Cativo in 10th. Well, we asked how much longer Core was able to keep up this pace. Well, not much longer, considering that on lap 9, he's the first of the main competitors to pit, therefore indicating or solidifying his 3-stop strategy. Now, the question is, when are the top runners going to pit? Those, of course, being Peters, Winter, Heyman, and Smith. Well, 1 lap later, to be precise, Kevin Peters decides to pit, as well as Jan Winter and Aaron Smith. Knezevic also decides to pit that same lap, as well as Aaron Curtis. Lap 11, and Max Heyman actually decides to pit, so almost everybody seemingly going with either a 3-stop strategy or with a 2-stop strategy and an incredibly light car for their first stint. So Peters back in 1st, Cativo in 2nd, he's not gone into the pits yet, Heyman in 3rd, Winter in 4th, Benton Reeder drops back behind Aaron Smith, who's now in 5th, Kronsky in 7th, he's not decided to pit yet, Core in 8th, who's just overtaken Alexander Knezevic in 9th, Curtis in 10th, Early in 11th, and Christian Dittmer in 12th. So right now it looks as if Kevin Peters might be on a 3-stop, Gonzalez Cativo might be on a 2-stop, Heyman on a 3-stop, Winter on a 3-stop, Smith on a 3-stop, Benton Reeder on a 3-stop, Kronsky on a 2-stop, Core on a 3-stop, Knezevic on a 3-stop, question mark, Curtis on a 3-stop, Early on a 3-stop, and Christian Dittmer on a 3-stop strategy. Now, after his pit stop, Bartosz Kapeta seems to be struggling a lot. We're not quite sure as to why, but as we can see, he's struggling a lot with his car, his setup, his tires. We're not really sure, to be honest. In the meantime, Max Heyman has overtaken Gonzalez Cativo, therefore Heyman now in P2, Cativo in P3. It definitely looks as if Gonzalez Cativo is on for a 2-stop today. And it's going to be interesting to see whether he's going to be able to compete for victory or at least for a podium against people like Winter and Smith, who are right behind him in P4 and P5. Smith, of course, trying to overtake Winter. And considering it's his first road race in the AMC season, we can only be as impressed with him as we've been on the Michigan Oval. Now Winter overtaking Gonzalez Cativo, a little bump between Smith and Cativo, but they're still going, they're still fine. Smith now going ahead of Gonzalez Cativo. Cativo now dropping back to 5th. Meanwhile, Kevin Peters lapping Bartosz Kapeta, not finding his brakes, losing his front and rear wing. I can't believe my eyes. The championship leader with a crucial mistake. Kevin Peters, just like Johannes Michel earlier, chucking it into the barrier. Max Heyman says, thank you very much, good sir. And now Kevin Peters has to crawl back to the pits. What an incredible development. And this might just be the first big mistake of the season from the MPM driver with the number 0 on his car. Let's look at it one more time. Again, Peters laps Bartosz Kapeta as you'd expect him to, being a bit quicker on the straight than usual due to the slipstream, slightly outbrakes himself, and doesn't quite manage to keep it out of the wall. What a bitter, bitter blow for the MPM driver, the leader in the American Monoposto Championship. And I can tell you there's one guy on the grid who's incredibly happy right now, and that will be Alexander Knezevic, because this is the chance he's been waiting for all season. Now, while all the calamity is happening, Gonzalez Cativo pits for the very first time. Again, another indicator that he's trying his damnedest to finish the race with only 2 stops. Now, it is possible to finish the race with 2 stops, and fuel-wise, I'm not particularly concerned that he won't be able to finish the race, but I'm not sure which tires he's on. The drivers have been warned in the briefing that tire wear in Road America is incredibly high. Puncture punctures are a realistic possibility if you don't take care of your rubber. So right now the standings are as follows. Max Heyman in the lead, ahead of Jan Winter in second, Aaron Smith in third, Benton Reeder in fourth, Core in fifth, Knezevic in sixth, Curtis in seventh, Early in eighth, Kativo in ninth, Christian Dittmer in 10th, and he's stationary, and we can already tell you this will be the very first safety car of the race because he can't find the reverse gear. Josh Kazar had to deploy the safety car, and once again, everything in this race is turned upside down. Now let's look at what happened from Christian Dittmer's perspective. Going on the grass just a little bit. Doesn't bump into the wall, but he doesn't seem to find reverse gear. And what a bitter blow for the Falcon driver. His performance was solid, but not being able to find his reverse gear actually cost him a pretty good points position today, and also caused the very first safety car of the race. Now, of course, the question is, at this point in time, are the drivers considering trying to finish the race with one more pit stop? We just saw Gonzalez Kativo pit for the very first time today, so it might be a big stretch to try and fuel your car to the end, but depending on how long the safety car takes, it might actually be a realistic possibility. Also, Kevin Peters will probably be jumping with joy considering that he's pretty much back in contention for good points. Though considering his car is pretty damaged at this point, I'm not sure how good his pace is actually going to be. So pretty much everybody decides to pit except for one guy. That's right, Gonzalez Kativo. And now the question is he in a position to finish the race with only one stop? That would be incredible. But then again, I'm not sure if his tires are in a position to take that. Let's see what happens here. Max Heyman in the lead of the race. Now, I'm not sure as to why he stops on track and lets everybody through, whether he had to take an important call, whether it was a technical issue, but nonetheless, Max Heyman loses loads of time. He'll also decide to pit one more time. He's dropped back a lot, and therefore bizarrely dropping out of contention for race victory, at least for now. Now, after the safety car, Winter's in first, Kativo's in second, Knezevic is in third, Core in a fantastic fourth, Smith back in fifth, Curtis in sixth, Bent Reeder in seventh, Early in eighth, Waldinger all of a sudden in P9, Heyman in 10th, Peters in 11th, Bartosz Krapeta in P12. Now, it looks as if Heyman had problems with his camera. He didn't see the right camera angle and therefore was seemingly confused. He couldn't continue until he changed his camera back to the original position and therefore dropped back loads of places, but he was able to pit one more time. And so he was able to make absolutely sure that he could finish the race on this set of tires and this set of fuel, it seems. A green flag drops once again, and Kativo with a brilliant start. Gonzalez Kativo in the lead, ahead of Jan Winter, Core in third, Knezevic in fourth, behind him Smith, Curtis Early in seventh, Benton Reeder with a bit of gap between himself and James Early. Benton Reeder outbrakes himself and he collides with James Early, costing both of them tons of time. Early almost collects Bartosz Krapeta there. And Gonzalez Kativo still in the lead, ahead of Winter, Core in third, fighting with Smith. They fought earlier. Behind them, Curtis and Heyman up to sixth once again. Smith going around the outside of Core, doesn't outbrake himself. Curtis defending against Heyman, Knezevic in seventh. Krapeta in eighth, Peters in ninth, Waldinger in 10th, Early in 11th, Benton Reeder in 12th, whose engine has decided to quit. Well, you might just call that karma. Daniel Benton Reeder with his second retirement in a row. Very disappointing, especially considering his great pace today. Kativo in first, Winter in seventh, now fighting with Smith once again. Behind them, Core defending against Curtis, Heyman, and Knezevic. And now Smith trying to overtake Winter. But once again, he outbrakes himself into T1. Winter with the brilliant switchback. Still in second, Kativo first. And meanwhile, Bartosz Krapeta, of all people, is fighting with Kevin Peters. Now, as far as we can tell, his car is crooked. And there's an engine failure! That's Aaron Smith! I cannot believe my eyes. Aaron Smith, incredible performance today. Absolutely astounding. But seemingly luck not on his side. An absolutely disastrous day for MPM. Meanwhile, James Early back up to 9th, after his collision with Benton Reader. Peters passed Corpetta. He's now in 7th. Ahead of them, Knezevic in P6. Not really able to compete with Aaron Curtis at the moment. And this means that Simon Core is now in 3rd, but behind him, Max Heyman is pushing because he realizes that depending on whether Jan Winter and Gonzalez Cativo have to pit again, he's still in with a shout for race victory despite his technical difficulties during the safety car phase. Core versus Heyman down to T1. Heyman going around the outside, no issues whatsoever for the man with the number 13. Of course, it would be great for him to actually be able to win a race after his also somewhat disappointing season so far, because his pace is there without a shadow of a doubt. He's one of the quickest guys on this entire grid, but so far it's just not been his season. He's yet to win a single race in online sim racing, as he told us ahead of the season, and this might be his greatest opportunity to do so far. Now, Cativo's still in the lead. The question is, can he actually finish the race without stopping one more time? Remember, he didn't pit during the safety car phase. He has to stretch the fuel from his one and only pit stop. Again, if he were to pull that off, that would be absolutely astounding, but I personally have my doubts at this point, but who knows? Then again, who knows what might be possible around Road America? Course still in 4th, Curtis in 5th with an engine failure, the next engine blown. 3rd engine failure of the day, Aaron Curtis has to retire. And speaking of bitter blows, that is very disappointing for Aaron Curtis. Also, great performance by the Irish driver with the number 46, but it just wasn't meant to be today, now was it? Absolutely heartbreaking what we're seeing here today. Both Aarons retiring, both would have been very deserving of great points today. Absolutely no doubt about that. Therefore now, Cativo in 1st, Winter in 2nd, Heyman in 3rd. He's catching Winter rather quickly. Core in 4th, he's just trying his damnedest to stay in P4. Knezevic in 5th, Peters in 6th, early in 7th. He's now past Bartosz Kopeta in 8th. Been a solid performance so far from Bartosz, despite the issues that we saw earlier. Waldinger in 9th, he's just trying his best to keep it on track, it seems. But even if he is able to finish in P9, there is definitely a huge discrepancy between the top tier drivers within MPM and the actual team boss of MPM. Early's catching Peters quickly, though as far as we can tell, he's trying to save his tires as much as he can for a late race sprint. Therefore, we likely will not see any dive bombs or overambitious overtaking attempts against Kevin Peters, despite his car being broken at this point. Simon Core is building a solid gap to Alexander Knezevic in 5th, and he knows that if anybody ahead of him still needs to pit, he might actually be in with a shout for a podium today. And you can see the gap between Jan Winter and Max Heyman is decreasing lap after lap after lap. Now, I wonder how aggressive would Max Heyman be against Jan Winter, considering that they're both in a position where they might win their respective first races in the American Monoposto Championship. Remember, 2 weeks ago, on pace, Jan Winter could have won in Michigan, but a 45-second time penalty cost him victory because of a pit lane infringement. Could this be his lucky day? At the same time, it would be incredibly fulfilling for Gonzalez Cativo to actually win his first race of the season, especially considering everything that's happened with Kevin Peters and Alexander Knezevic today. So if he wins today, he might still be an outside contender for this year's American Monoposto Championship, but only if he's able to win the race. But looking at this, he might not be able to do it. Gonzalez Cativo has to pit one more time. Therefore now, Jan Winter in the lead ahead of Max Heyman, Simon Core in 3rd. And it looks as if Gonzalez Cativo is not going to be able to win his first race in the American Monoposto Championship. Where is Cativo going to come out? He's going to come out in 5th, right ahead of Peters. He's able to overtake him. James Early is not. Cativo therefore now in P6. But remember, Cativo's now in fresh rubber, therefore he should be able to overtake Kevin Peters easily, and he's able to do so only a few seconds after his pit stop. Going around the outside of the championship leader, who once again is racing in an incredibly broken car. Therefore, it looks as if victory will be decided between Jan Winter and Max Heyman. Remember, neither of them have been able to win a race this season. Max Heyman's tires might be a bit more worn than Jan Winter's, and that might be the deciding factor that could help Jan Winter to his first victory in the AMC 2022. Heyman losing over 3 seconds this time by. Winter with a 146 flat, Heyman with a 149.2. Meanwhile, James Early has overtaken Kevin Peters, who's now in P7. And Gonzalez Cativo has managed to overtake Alexander Knezevic, who's now in 4th. Again, huge respect to Alexander Knezevic for taking this Deutschmark wheel with him on vacation. You can definitely tell that he wants to win this year's American Monoposto Championship. Now, Winter's relaxing at the front. It seems as if he's cruising to his first victory because the gap between himself and Max Heyman is growing rapidly. And from what we're hearing, that's because Max Heyman actually has a puncture. You can see it right here, Max Heyman has a puncture, his tires are toast, which means that Simon Core right behind him, who caught up 7 seconds the lap before, is now in P2. Wouldn't that be an incredible story if the admin of the American Monoposto Championship suddenly ended up in 2nd position? Max Heyman still in 3rd, behind him Gonzalez Cativo, he's definitely going to let him through. Cativo, of course, his teammate, who's theoretically still in with a shout for this year's American Monoposto Championship. Cativo's through, Heyman still in 4th. Can he keep P4, or will he have to yield to both James Early and Alexander Knezevic behind him? Let's have a look at our winner first. Jan Winter wins the race at Road America. 20 points for the man with the number 11. $20 points for Winter. Absolutely flawless drive today. Of course, 2nd, Cativo 3rd. But let's look at this situation. Heyman with a puncture, still trying to defend against Early, who goes around the outside of Knezevic. Great overtake from Early, but he's being blocked by Max Heyman, who's desperately trying to defend his position. Knezevic goes through, tries his damnedest to overtake Early, and the final turn doesn't manage to do so. James Early, all of a sudden, in P4. Absolutely fantastic race finish. Knezevic in 5th, Heyman in P6. What an absolutely crazy finish to the race. Let's look at the results one more time, shall we? Jan Winter wins ahead of Simon Core and Gonzalez Cativo. James Early finishes 4th ahead of Alexander Knezevic. Kevin Peters somehow still manages to finish in 6th. Max Heyman finishes 7th ahead of Benz Waldinger, Bartosz Krpeta, Aaron Curtis in 10th, Aaron Smith in 11th, and Daniel Benton-Reeder in 12th. Though since they did not complete 75% of the race distance, Aaron Curtis, Aaron Smith, and Daniel Benton-Reeder are not going to receive full points, but rather half points. In the Drivers' Championship, Kevin Peters is still in the lead ahead of Alexander Knezevic and Jan Winter, who's now moved up into 3rd place ahead of Gonzalez Cativo. Now, of course, the question is, could Jan Winter actually become a dark horse for the American Monoposto Championship 2022? Meanwhile, in the Teams Championship, Odilo is in a comfortable lead, 32 points ahead of Kostek and MPM with 107.5 points. And if you want to see how all this continues, don't worry, we got you covered, because in 2 weeks we're going to release the 7th round of the American Monoposto Championship 2022, that being the race at Laguna Seca, one of the most famous circuits in American racing. But until then, thank you for watching, keep racing.